The October sun beat down on the dusty pens of the Parsons Livestock Auction in Kansas, and in pen 17, a 5-month-old sorrel filly with a white blaze stood as far from the rails as she could get. Her name was nothing, just Lot 41 on a piece of paper stapled to the gate. She'd learned in her short life that when humans gathered and pointed and laughed, nothing good followed. So she stayed in the corner, her weight shifted off her bad leg, trying to be invisible. It never worked. "Lord have mercy, look at that club foot," a man in a black Stetson said, leaning on the rail, twisted damn near backwards. Breeder should have put her down at birth, his companion agreed. Waste of feed keeping her this long. The filly's left front leg bent inward at a severe angle, the hoof so deformed she walked on its outer edge. Every step hurt. Had hurt since the day she was born, when the mare who birthed her had taken one look at that twisted leg and refused to let her nurse. The breeder had his ranch hands bottle feed her until she was 3 months old before deciding she wasn't worth the effort. She'd spent the last 2 months in a back pen, ignored except when someone threw hay over the fence. The other foals had been handled, halter-trained, taught to trust humans. She'd been taught that she was a mistake. The gate to pen 17 opened with a metallic screech. The filly's head shot up, ears pinned flat. A handler came in with a lead rope, and she tried to retreat further into the corner. But there was nowhere to go. "Come on, you worthless thing," the handler muttered, snapping the lead onto her halter. "Let's get this over with." He dragged her toward the auction ring. She fought every step, not because she was mean, but because she was terrified. The handler yanked harder, her bad leg buckled, and she nearly fell. Laughter erupted from the watching crowd. The auction ring was chaos, bright lights, too many humans, the overwhelming smell of fear and sweat from the dozens of horses that had gone before her. The filly stood in the center, trembling, while the auctioneer's voice rattled off information she couldn't understand. "Quarter-horse filly, 5 months, clubfoot as you can see, sold as is, no guarantees. Who'll give me $50 to start?" Silence greeted him. The filly looked at the crowd of faces, all staring at her, none seeing anything but her twisted leg. 25? Come on, folks, she's still a horse. A man in the front raised one finger. Bored. Casual. The filly didn't know what that meant, but she felt something dark radiating from him. He smelled like death. Then a voice came from the back. 50. The filly's ears swiveled toward the sound. A man stood near the rear of the auction house. Tall, weathered, with kind eyes that looked at her differently than everyone else. He didn't see a clubfoot. He saw her. 50, thank you, sir. 60? The death-smell man raised his finger again, annoyed now. 60. Do I hear 70? The kind-eyed man nodded. This went back and forth 3 more times before the death-smell man stood up and walked out. The filly felt something loosen in her chest. She didn't understand auctions or bidding, but she understood that the kind-eyed man had just fought for her. No one had ever fought for her before. Loading into the trailer was terrifying. The filly had been trailered only once, from the breeder's ranch to the auction. That ride had been cramped, dark, filled with the distress of other horses. But the kind-eyed man, she'd heard someone call him Cody, didn't force her. He stood at the base of the ramp, lead rope loose in his hand, and waited. "I know you're scared," he said quietly. "I know everything hurts, but I promise you're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you anymore." The filly didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Gentle. Patient. She took one hesitant step toward the ramp. The bad leg screamed in protest, but she pushed through the pain. "That's it. You're doing great." Another step. Another. The ramp shifted under her uneven weight, and she froze, panic rising. But Cody just stood there, radiating calm, giving her time to find her courage. It took 30 minutes, but she finally stepped into the trailer. Cody rewarded her with gentle praise and closed the door carefully, not slamming it like the auction handlers had. The drive was long but smooth. The trailer was clean, filled with fresh hay. Through the slats, the filly could see mountains rising against the sky, bigger and more beautiful than anything she'd ever seen. The air smelled different here, cleaner, wilder. She was leaving behind the only place she'd ever known, But that place had been cruel. Maybe this new place would be different. Maybe. The Bowman Ranch sat in a valley between two ridges, and when Cody opened the trailer door, the filly's first breath of mountain air made her nostrils flare with interest. There were other horses here. She could hear them before she saw them, a deep nicker of greeting, the thunder of hooves on hard-packed earth. An old bay gelding stood at the fence of a nearby pasture, ears forward, watching her with intelligent eyes. The filly limped down the ramp, and her bad leg immediately buckled. She went down hard on her knees. Panic shot through her. At the breeders, falling meant humans yelling, kicking, calling her useless. But Cody just knelt beside her, hands gentle on her neck. Easy. You're all right. Take your time. With his help, she struggled back to her feet. Everything hurt. Everything always hurt. Cody led her slowly to the barn, a weathered but solid building that smelled of hay and leather and horses. Inside, he'd prepared a stall deep with fresh bedding, cleaner and softer than anywhere she'd ever been. There was a bucket of clear water. Clean hay, not moldy scraps, but green, sweet-smelling grass hay. The filly buried her muzzle in it and ate like she was starving, because she was. "Eat as much as you want," Cody said, checking her water. "You're home now." Home. The filly didn't know that word, but she felt something settle in her chest. This place felt different. Safer. Through the stall bars she could see the old bay gelding in the next stall, watching her with wise eyes. "That's Buck," Cody said. "He's a good teacher. He'll help you learn the ropes." The filly finished eating and lay down in the soft bedding, exhaustion overwhelming her. For the first time in her short life, she slept without fear. The next morning, a woman arrived in a truck. She smelled clinical, like medicine and metal, but her hands were gentle when she examined the filly from nose to tail. "Oh, Cody," the woman said quietly. "This is bad. That leg." The filly stood as still as she could, while the woman, a veterinarian, though the filly didn't know that word, checked the twisted limb from every angle. It hurt when she manipulated the hoof, and the filly flinched. "I know, sweetheart, I'm sorry." They talked for a long time, using words the filly didn't understand. All she knew was that the vet's face was serious, and Cody's jaw was set with determination. When the vet left, Cody stood in the stall doorway for a long time, just looking at her. "They all said you weren't worth saving," he said finally, "but I think they're wrong. I think you've got fight in you, so here's the deal. You keep fighting, and I'll fight right alongside you. We'll prove them all wrong together." The filly didn't understand the words, but she felt the promise in them. 3 days later, Cody opened her stall and led her outside for the first time. The morning air was crisp and clean, and the mountains glowed pink in the sunrise. But what captured the filly's attention was the pasture where 3 other horses stood watching her. Buck, the old bay gelding, a sturdy sorrel mare with a kind face, Clementine, Cody called her, and a young chestnut gelding who pranced and snorted, Flint. "Let's see how this goes," Cody murmured, opening the pasture gate. The filly limped through slowly, her heart pounding. At the breeders, the other foals had bitten her, kicked her, driven her away from the good hay. She expected the same here. Buck walked toward her slowly, neck low, ears forward. The greeting of a herd leader. He touched his nose to hers gently, breathing in her scent. Then he did something that made the filly's eyes widen. He shifted his weight and deliberately stood on her good side, his shoulder pressed against hers, supporting her, accepting her. Clementine approached next, nickering softly. She nuzzled the filly's neck, then moved to stand on her other side. Even Flint, after a few curious circles, settled into the group. For the first time in her life, the filly was part of a herd. Not the outcast. Not the mistake. Just one of them. The work started the next day, and it was brutal. Every morning Cody came to the barn before dawn. He'd gently manipulate the filly's bad leg, stretching the contracted tendons, working the deformed hoof. It hurt. God, it hurt. The filly wanted to pull away, to bite, to kick. But Cody never got angry. He'd work slowly, talking to her the whole time, praising every moment she stood still. And afterward, there were treats. Carrots, apples, sweet grain. Then came the walking therapy, slow circles around the arena, forcing the filly to use that bad leg properly to build strength in the compensating muscles. 20 minutes. 30. An hour. Day after day after day. Some mornings the filly didn't want to get up. The pain was too much, the effort too hard. She'd lie in her stall and think about giving up. But then Buck would nick her from the next stall. Or Cody would come in and sit beside her in the shavings, not forcing, just being present. And somehow, she'd find the strength to try again. The vet came every 2 weeks to trim her hoof, each time cutting away deformed growth, gradually correcting the angle. The filly learned to stand perfectly still for this, even though it hurt, because she was beginning to understand that the hurt led to healing. By the 2nd month, she could walk without that severe lurch. The angle of her hoof had improved. She was putting on weight, her ribs no longer visible, her coat beginning to shine. By the 3rd month, she could trot. It wasn't pretty. She'd always have that off-kilter gait, but she could move faster than a walk without falling. And one morning, in her 4th month at the ranch, the filly felt something she'd never felt before, the urge to run. Not because she was being chased, not because she was afraid, but because the sun was shining, the grass was green, and her body, broken as it was, wanted to feel the joy of movement. She took off across the pasture in an awkward, lurching gallop. Buck whinnied in surprise. Clementine trotted alongside her, encouraging. Flint raced past, then circled back, inviting her to play. The filly ran. Her bad leg protested, but she pushed through the pain and ran, her mane flying, her heart soaring. She bucked, actually bucked, kicking her hind legs up in pure exuberance. From the fence, Cody watched with tears streaming down his weathered face. She was going to make it. Winter came to Kansas, and the ranch was blanketed in snow. The filly, now 7 months old, bigger and stronger, discovered that her bad leg handled the snow poorly. She slipped often, falling more than the other horses. But Buck taught her to walk more carefully, to place her hooves with extra care. Clementine showed her where the footing was safest. Even Flint, usually too energetic to be helpful, learned to slow down when she struggled. The herd had adapted to her, and she to them. Cody fitted her with a special shoe the farrier had made, orthopedic, designed to support the weak structures and encourage proper growth. The filly hated it at first, hated the weight and the strangeness, but within days, she realized she could move better with it, walk longer without pain, even trot without as much difficulty. By spring, when the snow melted and the grass turned green, the filly had become a yearling. Her coat had transformed from dull brown to a rich, gleaming sorrel. Her body had filled out with muscle. She stood tall and proud, no longer the cowering creature from the auction. She still limped, probably always would. But she moved with confidence now, with joy, with the knowledge that her body, imperfect as it was, could still do amazing things. Cody started teaching her basic groundwork, standing still for grooming, leading properly, loading in the trailer without fear. The filly learned quickly, eager to please this human who'd given her a life worth living. She loved training time, loved the praise and treats and attention, but most of all, she loved the way Cody looked at her, not with pity or disappointment, but with pride. One afternoon, a truck pulled up to the ranch. A man got out and walked to the pasture where the filly was grazing with Buck. "That her?" the man asked Cody. "The club-footed foal from the auction?" "That's her." "I'll be damned. She looks incredible. What are you calling her?" Cody smiled. "Haven't named her yet. Been waiting for her to tell me who she is." The filly lifted her head, ears forward, studying the stranger. She took a few steps toward the fence, that distinctive off-kilter gait, but moving with confidence. She stretched her neck out, sniffing the stranger's hand, then snorted and trotted away, bucking playfully. "She's got spirit," the stranger said, impressed. "Tell you what, I know a breeder who'd pay good money for her. Those are Hancock lines if I've ever seen them. Bad leg or not, she's worth something for breeding." The filly saw Cody's expression change, something fierce and protective. "She's not for sale," Cody said flatly. "Not now, not ever." The filly didn't understand the conversation, but she understood the tone. Cody wasn't giving her away. She was his, and he was hers. Safe. Finally, permanently safe. That night, Cody sat on the fence rail, watching the filly graze in the pasture under the stars. Buck stood nearby, the old gelding's presence calm and steady. "You need a name," Cody said to her. "Can't keep calling you the filly forever." The filly walked over to him, her bad leg dragging slightly in the soft grass. She reached up and bumped his knee with her nose, asking for attention. Cody scratched behind her ears, her favorite spot. "You're the toughest thing I've ever seen," he said quietly. "Everyone said you were worthless, said you should be put down. But you fought. Every single day, you fought. You didn't give up, even when I know you wanted to." The filly leaned into his touch, eyes half closed in contentment. "You're not just surviving anymore, you're thriving. You're showing everyone what real courage looks like." He paused. "How about valor? That's what you've got. Valor." The filly, Valor, lifted her head at the name. Something about it felt right, felt like hers. "Valor it is then," Cody said, smiling. "Welcome to the family, officially." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Valor continued to grow and strengthen. By her second birthday, she stood 15 hands tall, her sorrel coat gleaming copper in the summer sun, her white blaze distinctive and proud. She would never be a riding horse. Her leg couldn't support that kind of stress, but she didn't need to be. She had her place in the herd, had Cody's love, had a home where she was valued just for being herself. Then came the day that changed everything. It was late August, hot and dry. Valor was grazing with Buck and Clementine in the big pasture when she heard it, a sound that made every nerve in her body light up with alarm. Crying. A child. Crying. Valor's head shot up, ears swiveling toward the sound. It was coming from beyond the fence line, near the creek that ran along the eastern edge of the property. Buck heard it too. The old gelding moved toward the fence, nickering nervously. But he was too old, too arthritic, to do much more than alert. Valor made a decision. She turned and cantered toward the sound, her bad leg protesting but holding. At the fence, she didn't hesitate. She jumped. It wasn't a clean jump. Her bad leg clipped the top rail, and she landed hard on the other side, nearly going down. But she recovered and kept going, following the sound of crying. At the creek, she found him, a little boy, maybe 6 years old, stuck in the middle of the rushing water. He'd been playing and slipped, and now he clung to a boulder, the current threatening to sweep him away. Valor didn't think. She just acted. She waded into the creek, the cold water shocking against her legs. The current was strong, pushing against her, and her bad leg made balance treacherous. But she kept going, step by careful step, until she reached the boy. He stared at her with terrified eyes. "Horse," he whimpered. Valor moved alongside him, positioning herself between the boy and the strongest part of the current. She stood solid as a rock, creating a breakwater with her body. "Help!" the boy screamed. "Somebody help!" His cries finally reached the neighboring ranch. Within minutes, adults came running. They splashed into the creek, using Valor's body as an anchor point, and pulled the boy to safety. Valor waited until they were all on the bank before turning carefully and making her own way out. Her bad leg was shaking with exhaustion, but she'd done it. She'd saved him. The boy's parents were from the neighboring ranch, the Harrisons. They'd moved in just last month, and Cody hadn't met them yet. But he met them that day when they brought their son, wrapped in blankets and crying with relief, to his door. "Your horse saved our boy," Mrs. Harrison sobbed. She jumped the fence, went right into that creek and stood there protecting him until we could get to him. I've never seen anything like it. Cody walked out to the pasture where Valor stood, still dripping creek water, her bad legs swollen and sore. Buck stood beside her, nuzzling her neck in approval. "You crazy beautiful girl," Cody whispered, running his hands over her to check for injuries. "You could have drowned. That leg." Valor bumped his chest with her nose. She was tired and sore, but she was fine. More than fine. For the first time in her life, she'd been able to help someone else, to be the strong one, the brave one. She'd been worth something. News spread fast in rural Kansas. Within days, everyone knew the story of the club-footed horse who'd saved the Harrison boy. People started stopping by the ranch just to see her, to take pictures, to bring her carrots and treats. A reporter from the local newspaper came out, then a regional magazine. They took photos of Valor standing proudly in the pasture, her bad leg visible but not defining her. They interviewed Cody about her rescue from the auction, her recovery, her heroism. The article's headline read, "Worthless no more, club-footed horse proves her worth in Creek rescue." But Cody knew the truth. Valor had never been worthless. Not at the auction. Not when she could barely walk. Not ever. Her worth wasn't determined by what she could do. It was intrinsic to who she was. The attention brought unexpected consequences. A therapeutic riding center 3 counties over called, asking if they could bring some of their students to meet Valor. Kids with disabilities who'd been told they couldn't do things, couldn't achieve things. Cody hesitated. Valor wasn't used to crowds, to strange children. But something made him say yes. The first group arrived on a Saturday morning. 8 kids, ages 7 to 15, all with various physical challenges. Wheelchairs, prosthetic limbs, cerebral palsy, spina bifida. Cody brought Valor to the arena, and the kids gathered at the fence, staring at this horse they'd heard about. "She's limping," one girl said, confused. "I thought she was a hero horse." "She is," Cody said. "Watch." He unclipped Valor's lead and let her free in the arena. She trotted around the perimeter, that distinctive off-kilter gait obvious to everyone. Then she broke into a canter, awkward but determined, and kicked up her heels in a playful buck. "She's running," a boy in a wheelchair exclaimed. "Even with her bad leg, she's running." "That's right," Cody said. Valor was born with a severe clubfoot. Everyone at the auction said she should be put down. But she didn't give up. She worked hard every single day, and now she can run and play and even save lives. She doesn't let her disability define her. The kids were transfixed. For the next hour, they took turns approaching Valor, petting her, talking to her. She stood patiently, seeming to understand that these children needed her gentleness. One girl with prosthetic legs stood at Valor's shoulder, her hand on the mare's neck, crying quietly. "Nobody else gets it," she whispered to the horse. "They all say, 'You're so brave,' or 'You're so inspiring,' but they don't understand what it's like. To have everyone see what's wrong with you first. To have to work twice as hard just to do normal things." Valor turned her head and gently nuzzled the girl's shoulder. The girl wrapped her arms around the horse's neck and sobbed. Cody had to turn away, his own eyes burning. This was Valor's real purpose. Not to be ridden, not to win ribbons, not to make money, but to show others that different didn't mean less than. That worth wasn't measured in perfection. The visitors kept coming. More therapy programs. Schools. 4 age groups. Valor became something of a local celebrity, and with that came offers. Breeding facilities wanted her confirmed bloodlines. Despite her club foot, she could still produce valuable foals. One breeder offered $80,000. A wealthy horse collector wanted her for his private menagerie of unusual horses, $120,000. A therapeutic center in Colorado wanted to buy her to be their permanent mascot and therapy horse, $160,000. Each offer was more than Cody made in 2 years of ranching. Each offer would change his life, secure his future, save the ranch from the constant financial pressure. Cody sat at his kitchen table, looking at the numbers, doing the math. It would be the sensible choice, the practical choice. Valor would have a good life in any of these places. She'd be cared for, valued, safe. But she wouldn't be home. He walked out to the pasture. Valor was grazing with Buck, Clementine, and Flint. The old gelding's arthritis had gotten worse, and lately Valor had taken to standing beside him during the hot afternoons, her body providing shade for her aging friend. When she saw Cody, she lifted her head and nickered, that special sound she saved just for him. She limped over to the fence, eager for attention, for the treats he usually carried, for the simple pleasure of his company. Cody scratched her favorite spot behind her ears. "They want to buy you," he said quietly, "offer you a fancy life somewhere else. And maybe I should let them. Maybe that would be what's best for you." Valor pushed her face into his chest, leaving horse slobber on his shirt. "But I can't," Cody continued, his voice breaking. "I can't let you go. You're not just a horse to me. You're You're proof that the world can be better than it is, that something everyone throws away can become something extraordinary. You saved me just as much as I saved you." He wrapped his arms around her neck and Valor stood perfectly still, letting him hold her. "So no," he said finally, "you're staying right here, where you belong." Valor was 5 years old when the documentary crew arrived. Someone had pitched a short film about her story to a streaming service, and they'd greenlit it. A small crew spent 3 weeks at the ranch, filming Valor's daily life, interviewing Cody, talking to the people she'd impacted. They filmed her in the pasture with her herd. Buck had passed away the previous winter, peacefully, in his sleep, and Valor had mourned him deeply. But she'd taken his place as the herd leader, and now she watched over Clementine, Flint, and 2 new rescues with the same gentle authority Buck had once shown her. They filmed her therapy visits, now a regular occurrence. Dozens of children had met Valor over the years, and many of them wrote letters to Cody, telling him how she'd inspired them. One girl had started walking again after meeting Valor, determined to match the horse's courage. A boy with severe anxiety had stopped having panic attacks after spending time in her calm presence. They filmed the creek where Valor had saved the Harrison boy, little Brian, who was 9 now, and visited Valor every week, bringing her apples and telling her about his life. And they filmed Cody talking about that day at the auction, about the tiny broken foal everyone had written off, about the choice to bid $60 that had changed everything. "I didn't save her," Cody said to the camera. "She saved me. She saved everyone who meets her. Because she's living proof that worth isn't about being perfect. It's about having the courage to keep going when everyone says you should quit." The documentary aired 6 months later. It won awards at film festivals, went viral online, was shown in schools and therapy centers across the country. But Valor didn't know about any of that. She only knew that she had her pasture, her herd, and her human who loved her. She knew that children came to visit her and left smiling. She knew that her life, once measured as worthless at $75, had become something beautiful. On a crisp autumn morning, 7 years after the auction, Cody stood at the pasture fence watching Valor graze. She was 8 years old now, fully mature, still beautiful, despite the permanent limp. A truck pulled up the driveway, another visitor. These days, people came from across the country to meet Valor, to take photos, to let their special needs children brush her and tell her their fears. But this visitor was different. A young woman got out, maybe 25. Walking with forearm crutches. She had the bearing of someone who'd fought hard for every step. "Mr. Bowman?" she called. "I'm Rachel. I wrote to you about visiting Valor." Cody remembered the letter. This young woman had been in a car accident at 16, told she'd never walk again. She'd spent years in physical therapy, pushing through pain, refusing to give up. She'd written that Valor's story had inspired her through the darkest times. "Of course. Come on, I'll introduce you." Cody called Valor over. The mare lifted her head, ears forward, and limped to the fence. When she saw Rachel, saw the crutches, the careful way she moved, something seemed to register in Valor's eyes. Recognition. Kinship. Rachel reached out with a shaking hand and touched Valor's nose. The horse leaned into the touch, gentle and understanding. "I know it seems silly," Rachel said, tears streaming down her face, "being inspired by a horse. But when I saw your documentary, when I saw her running in that pasture even with her bad leg, I realized that if she could do it, so could I. She gave me permission to be imperfect and keep trying anyway." "It's not silly at all," Cody said quietly. Rachel spent an hour with Valor, and when she finally left, she was smiling. "Thank you," she said, "for saving her, for giving the rest of us hope." After she drove away, Cody turned to Valor. "You know what you are?" he said. "You're proof. Proof that the auction house was wrong, that everyone who laughed was wrong. That, worthless, is just a lie people tell when they don't want to see what's really there." Valor bumped his chest with her nose, asking for treats. Cody laughed and pulled a carrot from his pocket. As Valor crunched it contentedly, he looked at her, really looked at her. At the powerful body, the gleaming coat, the intelligent eyes. At the off-kilter stance, the permanent reminder of where she'd started. She was perfect. Not despite her clubfoot, but including it. Everything she was, everything she'd overcome, everything she'd become, it all mattered. It all had value. The auction house had called her worthless at $75. They'd been wrong about everything. If Valor's story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every day we share stories of horses who overcame impossible odds, who proved everyone wrong, who showed us what real courage looks like. Share this video with someone who needs to hear valor's message, that different doesn't mean less than, that challenges don't define us, and that every life has inherent worth waiting to be discovered. Thank you for watching, for caring, and for believing in second chances. Until next time, keep your hearts open to the underdog. They might just change your life.